Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. There's no doubt Australia's CBDs are suffering. The COVID pandemic has transformed the way we work, but there are thousands of casualties, businesses that have gone to the wall. So how has one small business owner bucked the trend and kept his 5 city eateries afloat? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Michael Togias owns a series of cafes in inner Melbourne, but bases himself at the Mr Tulk cafe and restaurant, which is attached to the State Library of Victoria. And it's one of Melbourne's landmark city cafes. After having to close and open about 10 times over the past couple of years, Michael Togias credits his success to primarily looking after his staff during the hardest of times. He starts by explaining the nature of his business to Jeff Waters.
So we're a prestigious cafe in an iconic building in the centre of the CBD. So we're a 7-day cafe and we're one of the more prominent, more visible cafes in the CBD.
And you have an extensive menu as well. It's not just a cafe.
So it's a very continental menu where you've got a little bit of everything for everyone. You know, you've got your vegan and your vegetarian and you've got your meats and you've got your burgers and you've got your risottos and you've got your breakfasts and you got porridge and you got everything, fruit salad. So we cater for all needs and wants and idiosyncrasies and desires or whatever. So we try to cater for everyone, you know, but we have like one of every. So we've got one of pasta, we've got one schnitzel, we've got one Benedict, whatever. So we've got one of everything, but do it well. So we try to keep it open and welcome everyone.
And you run a number of other cafes, 4 or 5 other cafes in the CBD or in the central part of Melbourne. Yeah. How has it been over the last couple of years?
It's been interesting and challenging like it's been for everyone through COVID and everyone's had their challenges for different reasons. Like if I was stuck at home, like that would drive me nuts. If I had to work from home, that would drive me absolutely nuts. So we were stuck at home. We had to close this particular cafe. Other businesses stayed open, but then they accrued debt. So we were lucky here. You know, the landlord really looked after us. The State Library really looked after us with regards to rent. So it enabled us to survive. And then, you know, like we maintained our cash flow, which allowed us to prosper as soon as we did open, you know, and I maintained the support from my staff and stuff like that. So they were happy to wait around. So we had good staff to reopen the business, you know, quality staff. So
how did you retain the staff?
So with regards to they got all the government support and stuff like that they were enabled to have, you know, they had job security, and whenever we open and close I think 10 times all the way through. So each time we would open, they'd come in, you know, we all supported each other, we'd communicate. While we were in lockdown, you know, we would, you know, messages of support, all that sort of stuff, you know, little catches up, we'd go for walks. Whenever we were, one of the many times we'd reopen and open, we'd come in, we'd sit in the front, put a few tables together, have some lunch together or whatever. So it was really challenging. It was as challenging mentally as it was physically, you know, like you can stay at home and not do any work and that's fantastic. But, you know, like some people are not wired like that, you know, like you'd stay at home and work, but then stay at home not work was really hard, you know. So
you mentioned you had a break in the rent from the State Library, but that wasn't the case with your other cafes.
No, so it was tough, like, you know, to accrue debt and to not be able to do anything about it. Like, you know, say High Point, for example, we were trading 20% of normal. The same with Melbourne Central. We'd trade 20% of normal, and the way the government support was, the other 40% would get abated and the other 40 would be deferred. So you'd do 20% of normal trade, but you're paying 60% rent. So you were 40% rent out. And when your rent's $20,000 a month, you know, that's $8,000 a month. Over 6 months and then 3 months the following year, 9 months at $8,000, that's $72,000 each business accrued. So to repay that debt is really tough. So Melbourne Central, we're paying that off slowly, and then High Point, we opened up other shops to abate that debt. So sometimes...
How did that go?
Yeah, so it's okay. So one shop was not far from the other one, so it was okay, worked in well together. But it's risky. You've got to open up another shop, so it's really tough. You've got to find staff. You've got to, give it a point of difference from the other shop. Like one's a kiosk, one's a sort of more sit-in cafe. The third one's going to be a deli. So it's really interesting, and tough. You've got to take chances to try and get ahead, and abate all the debt that we accrued, So at the library, we're obviously a lot luckier with our landlord. We've got a great relationship with them, and they treat us very well. So, I really appreciated that, and that allows us to now prosper, and we're thriving at the moment. And, that's all because of as much about them as us. I've worked hard. Like since October, I've had 5 days off. But, it's also, had our cash flow maintained through the library supporting us and helping us get that support, and that allowed us to have cash flow when we did open up. We weren't looking over our shoulder all the time, so we could pay suppliers, pay staff, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it was tough. It's still tough, but yeah. Because the CBD of Melbourne, for me, will move from being a commercial city, and commercial business will move out, and I think it will become a residential city. And I think within 20, 30 years, there will be a mantra where it'll change over, and maybe they'll fix the transportation where people can travel in and out of the city a lot easier. But these offices are going to become residents, and there's no doubt about that. And I think hospitality and retail will thrive, and commercial
good news for cafes in the long run.
Yeah, well, you've got to survive all that time, but yeah. I'll have a few more grey hairs by then. But
how would you describe the CBD as you walk through it now?
Oh, like today, it feels COVID-like today. Like you can feel there's this eeriness. Like during COVID, there was this eeriness through the city, like you couldn't hear any noise, you couldn't hear any trams, you couldn't hear anything. And you get these days, like Mondays and Fridays are really tough through the CBD, and it's hard. Like people work from home, that's fine. Everyone wants to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Everyone wants to have Mondays and Fridays off. So what happens Mondays and Fridays, and it's still tough. You walk down, like Docklands it's going to be hard work at Docklands. Yeah, I mean, you've got prime real estate like the Royal Arcade, Swansea Street, where there's empty shops, like prime real estate.
Lots of empty shops in Swanston Street.
Yeah. Like, Elizabeth Street is awful, like Flinders Street Station is, it feels eerie, like it's not what it used to be, that thriving metropolis, So and I think this sector, this quadrant of the city here around Melbourne Central, so you got the library, you got RMIT, you got the market not far away, like it's a real thriving metropolis, and I think it's become the number one quadrant in the city. So, yeah, it's good for us. So,
great location. I suppose what many people would want to know is why is it that your businesses have survived while others haven't?
Well, it's one, the landlord support. The landlord support was critical in allowing us to maintain our cash flow. So that was really important, and maintaining the staff was really important. So it was really important to support them and try and get all the funding and all the support that they could get from the government during the pandemic. A lot of businesses I know that the first thing they did was dump their staff. Well, that was no good. And then when they wanted to reopen, they were looking for staff, and they'd go pay $50, $60 just to wash dishes or something like that, and not that I begrudge anyone washing dishes, but, like it's totally out of scale for what it was previously. And like hard work too, thirdly, like got to work hard. Like, I work as hard, or if not harder than anyone else in the business, and that sets the precedent. The customers respect that, my staff respect that, and we haven't altered or compromised the business in any way. Like we maintained our menu, we maintained the integrity of our menu, we kept the quality, we kept the pricing, kept it all the same. So when people came back, they found this little haven where, okay, things are okay. Things are the same here.
Back to normal.
Yeah, things are okay. Things are the same here, We're not charging, $7 for a coffee, or you put our prices up 20%, or, charged our fees for FPOS or anything like that. We've tried to absorb the pain together. We might have put our prices up a little bit, 10, 20 cents on, a coffee or whatever, but, we still absorb the FPOS fees, for example, so meet the customers halfway, and I think everyone appreciates that, and it's important to ride the journey together, with your staff, with your customers, so.
Well, you're enjoying customer loyalty, but my question is, you mentioned that the staff that you had before the pandemic got income assistance from the government, as very many people obviously did.
Yeah.
But what was to stop them going and getting that $50 or $60 an hour somewhere else? Why were they loyal to you?
I try to treat my staff as owners rather than workers. I let them run the business. I let them express themselves in the business. So they want to put the music on, they can put it on. We don't have strict uniform, like we have an apron, but they can wear their favourite jeans or their favourite top or whatever underneath, I like to allow them to express themselves, as their personalities. I'll let them run the business as much as, I'll clear the table and let them grab the order from the customer, I don't treat them as just workers, I treat them as equals. And I think it's really important they sense that respect, and the camaraderie that we have, it's really important to treat them as equals. The way I try to treat my wife as an equal and my kids as equals, I try to treat everyone as an equal, whether it's customers or staff or whatever, in life, you've got to try and treat people the way you want to be treated, just fairly and equally, so.
And how do you think it's going to go in the short term?
Look, in the short term, we're going really well at the moment, and we're really thriving, and it's tough because sometimes growing is tough as well because you've got to put extra staff, alter the hours, and it puts pressure on them as well because they need to work extra hours, and they're happy to work because they feel part of the business. They don't just feel like they're just workers, And there's no doubt we've lost one or two, who saw the bright lights in other places, and then they regret it obviously, but predominantly we've kept 99% of our staff, which is really good, so it's important, Whatever the future holds, I know my staff are going to be by my side, and I'm going to be by their side, and look after them and help them, and obviously my wife will be by my side telling me what I've done wrong. And
So it seems like generating this loyalty all around has been the secret of how you've survived the pandemic.
Yeah. And, loyalty to customers as well, and they reflect that loyalty as well. We have a lot of loyal customers, they feel comfortable in coming back. They feel comfortable bringing their guests, they feel comfortable that they're going to be treated well. They can host their own parties, their own, meetings at the place and they know they're going to get special service, they'll get treated well, and that's important to make it feel like it's a place where people can come and host their own dinner party.
That was restaurateur Michael Togias. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.